The smell of gochujang and suya spices hung thick in the air of the Kori house, a scent Amina Jang had grown to associate with survival. 6 months. That's how long she'd been working here. And that's how long she'd been living on borrowed time. Her visa had expired 4 months ago, turning her from a hopeful immigrant into a shadow, someone who existed in the cracks of Seoul's glittering facade. She moved between tables with practiced grace, her smile frozen in place like a mask she couldn't remove even when she was alone. The tray balanced on her palm carried soju bottles that cost more than she made in a week, destined for men in custom suits who never looked her in the eye. And that was fine. Better to be invisible. Better to be forgotten. But tonight felt different. Amina couldn't shake the prickling sensation at the back of her neck as she watched the entrance. The restaurant's usual crowd, diplomats conducting whispered deals, entrepreneurs celebrating contracts, tourists seeking Instagram-worthy fusion cuisine, had thinned out. In their place, an unusual tension settled over the dining room like fog. Mr. Kim, the restaurant manager, was sweating more than usual. His hands trembled as he adjusted the reservation book, checking it for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Amina had learned to read these signs. Something important was happening tonight. Something dangerous. Amina. Mr. Kim's voice cut through her thoughts. Private room 3. VIP service. Best behavior. She nodded, smoothing down her black apron embroidered with the Kori house's logo, a fusion of African Adinkra symbols and Korean Hangul. Her fingers traced the stitching nervously. VIP service meant big tips, but it also meant bigger risks. The private rooms were where deals were made that never saw the light of day. As she prepared the tray with premium soju, aged whiskey, and an array of banchan dishes infused with berbera spice, the front door opened. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jin Woo-cho stepped inside. Amina had never seen him in person, but she'd heard enough whispers to recognize him instantly. He moved like liquid shadow, each step deliberate and controlled. His suit was midnight blue, tailored so perfectly it looked like it had been sewn onto his body. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, dark, calculating, and utterly devoid of warmth. They swept across the restaurant with the assessment of a predator evaluating prey. Behind him came his entourage. Young Lee, his bodyguard, was a mountain of a man whose neck was thicker than Amina's thigh. His hand never strayed far from his jacket, where she knew a weapon must be concealed. Yunho Park, the advisor, walked with the careful steps of someone used to navigating dangerous waters. His wire-rimmed glasses and neat appearance made him look like a professor, but the coldness in his expression told a different story. Then came the others. Men whose faces Amina didn't recognize, but whose energy she understood instinctively. Dangerous men. Killers, probably. Room 3, Mr. Kim whispered urgently, pushing Amina forward. Go. Now. Her legs felt like lead as she walked toward the private dining area, the tray growing heavier with each step. The hallway leading to the private rooms was decorated with a mixture of African masks and Korean moon jars, a celebration of cultural fusion that tonight felt more like a collision course. She pushed open the door to room 3 with her shoulder, keeping her eyes down. Your drinks, gentlemen, she said softly in Korean, her accent carrying the faintest trace of her Nigerian roots despite years of practice. Leave them, a cold voice commanded. Jin Woo-cho's voice. It wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Amina set down the bottles and glasses with steady hands. Years of waitressing had taught her to hide fear, and turned to leave. But as she reached the door, another voice stopped her. Wait. This voice was different. Rough, with an accent she recognized immediately. West African. Specifically, Ghanaian. She turned slowly. The man who had spoken sat in the corner, partially hidden in shadow. As her eyes adjusted, she saw him clearly. He was built like a fighter, with scars on his knuckles and a cloudy left eye that seemed to look through her rather than at her. Tarikose. She didn't know his name yet, but she would never forget his face. You're Nigerian, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir, Amina replied, keeping her voice neutral. Igbo? Yoruba. Yoruba, sir. He nodded slowly, then waved her away dismissively. But as she stepped into the hallway, she heard him speak again, this time in rapid pidgin English to another man, one with a loud, boisterous voice she would later know as Thalani Ndlovu. This one go be easy pass, Tarek said. When Oga say Jianbi, na finish be that. Amina's hand froze on the door handle. Her blood turned to ice. Jianbi, the Korean word for cheers. A toast. A signal. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. She shouldn't be hearing this. She needed to leave, to run, to forget she'd ever heard those words. But she couldn't move. You sure say you go work? Thalani's voice, louder, more aggressive. This one not big fish. If we miss Am. We no go miss Am. Tarek cut him off. The poison day inside the special bottle. When he drink after the toast, not 3 minutes max. Go look like heart attack. Clean. Amina's mind raced. They were going to kill Jinwoo Cho. The Mafia boss sitting in that room surrounded by his men, thought he was safe. But he was walking into an execution. She should keep walking. This wasn't her business. These were dangerous men discussing dangerous things, and she was an illegal immigrant who couldn't afford to draw attention. If she interfered, if she said anything, they would kill her. Or worse, they would report her to immigration, and she'd be deported back to Lagos where her father's medical bills would consume what little they had left. Her father. The thought of him lying in that hospital bed, his body racked with tuberculosis, his eyes pleading with her to stay safe, to send money to survive, it made her chest tighten. What would he want you to do? A small voice whispered in her mind. But another voice, louder and more insistent, reminded her of the promise she'd made to herself when she left Nigeria. Survive. At any cost. You can't save anyone if you're dead. Amina forced her feet to move, one step, then another, walking away from the room and back toward the kitchen. Her hands shook as she set down the empty tray. The other waitresses bustled around her, oblivious to the murder plot unfolding just meters away. She could still warn him. There was time. But what if she was wrong? What if she'd misunderstood? Her Korean was good, but the pidgin English, what if she'd misheard? What if this was some kind of test or a joke, or when Oga say Jianbi, na finish be that? No. She hadn't misunderstood. The words were too clear, too specific. Think about Amina right now. She knows something terrible is about to happen. She has the power to stop it, but speaking up could cost her everything. Her safety, her income, maybe even her life. She's standing at a crossroads, and every second she waits, she's choosing silence over action. Have you ever been there? Known something was wrong but convinced yourself it wasn't your problem? That it was safer to stay quiet? Amina's about to make a choice that will change everything. And you're about to witness it. But here's the thing, you're involved now too. You've heard what she heard. You know what's coming. So before we continue, before you see what Amina decides, I need you to make a choice too. Will you stay silent? Or will you commit? Hit that subscribe button. Because once you see what happens next, there's no going back. You're part of this now. 15 minutes passed. Amina moved through the restaurant on autopilot, refilling water glasses, clearing plates, smiling at customers who barely acknowledged her existence. But her mind was in room 3, replaying those words over and over. She imagined Jinwoo Cho raising his glass. Imagined the word Jianbi leaving his lips. Imagined him drinking from a poisoned bottle, while his enemies watched with false smiles. Imagined his body convulsing, his eyes widening in surprise and pain, his hand reaching out for help that would come too late. Imagined herself, years from now, remembering this moment. Remembering that she could have stopped it. That she chose silence. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. He told her once, when she was a little girl in Lagos, about the day he'd witnessed a robbery. He'd been walking home from work when he saw 3 men beating a shop owner. He could have run. Could have looked away. Instead, he'd shouted, drawing attention, and the robbers had fled. You see, Amina, he'd said, his eyes warm with conviction. We are not just our own. We carry our ancestors in our bones, and our children in our hearts. Every choice we make ripples forward and backward through time. Choose to be someone your grandchildren would be proud to call theirs. Tears pricked at Amina's eyes. That same man was now lying in a hospital bed. His lungs failing, surviving on medication she paid for with money earned from staying invisible, from keeping quiet, from choosing survival over principle. He would understand, she told herself. He would want me to stay safe. But would he? Or would he look at her with disappointment? With the knowledge that she'd become someone who could witness evil and do nothing? A burst of laughter from room 3 jolted her back to the present. They were getting ready to make the toast. She was running out of time. Amina's feet moved before her brain could stop them. She grabbed a fresh bottle of water. Any excuse, and headed back toward the private room. Her hands trembled so badly the water sloshed in the bottle. What are you doing? Her survival instinct screamed. This is insane. These are killers. They will end you. But she kept walking. The hallway seemed longer now, stretching endlessly. Each step felt like walking toward her own execution. She could hear voices from inside the room, speaking in Korean now. She caught fragments. Business in Busan. Shipment arrives Thursday. Time to celebrate our partnership. Partnership. The word was laced with irony. This wasn't a partnership. It was a betrayal. Amina reached the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. This was it. The moment everything could change. If she walked in, if she spoke up, she would never be invisible again. Jin Woo-cho would know her face. His enemies would know her face. She would become a target, a loose end, a problem to be solved. But if she didn't, she pushed open the door. The conversation stopped immediately. Every eye in the room turned to her. Amina felt the weight of their attention like a physical force, pressing down on her shoulders, making it hard to breathe. I brought fresh water, she stammered, holding up the bottle like a shield. Jin Woo-cho's eyes narrowed slightly. He sat at the head of the table, his posture relaxed but his gaze sharp. She could feel him assessing her, calculating, trying to understand why a waitress would interrupt their private meeting. We didn't ask for water, Yunho Park said coldly. I know, I just thought you might. Amina's voice trailed off. This was stupid. This was so incredibly stupid. What was she going to do? Just blurt it out. Don't drink the soju, someone's trying to kill you? They think she was crazy. Or worse, they think she was part of it. Youngwa Lee stood up, his massive frame blocking out the light. Leave. Now. Amina's feet refused to move. She looked at Jin Woo-cho, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Intelligence. Not just the cold calculation of a crime lord, but genuine sharp intelligence. This was a man who'd survived in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was common. This was a man who noticed things. Their eyes met and for a moment the room fell away. Wait, Jinwoo said quietly. His hand rose in a small gesture, and Younghwa sat back down. You look nervous. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. I'm fine, sir, Amina said, but her voice cracked. No, you're not. Jinwoo leaned forward slightly. You're terrified. Why? The room held its breath. Amina could feel Tariq's cloudy eye boring into her from the corner. Could feel the tension rising like steam. One wrong word and this would all explode. But sometimes the only way out is through. Because, Amina said, her voice barely above a whisper, I heard something I shouldn't have. And I don't know if I should tell you, but I can't. I can't just let it happen. The silence that followed was deafening. Jin Woo-cho's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. A sharpening. Focusing. Let what happen? Amina's mouth went dry. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, could feel sweat forming on her palms. This was it. The point of no return. The toast, she said. When you say Jianbi. She didn't get to finish. The room erupted into chaos. Tariq lunged from his corner with surprising speed, his hand reaching for something in his jacket. But Younghwa was faster. The bodyguard intercepted him mid-stride, and the two men crashed into the wall. Thalani shouted something in Zulu and dove for the door, but Yunho Park was already there, blocking his exit. And Jin Woo-cho simply sat, perfectly still, his eyes never leaving Amina's face. Don't talk, Amina blurted out, the words tumbling from her lips. Please just, don't talk. Don't say Jianbi. Don't drink from that bottle. She pointed to a specific bottle of soju on the table, one that looked identical to the others but sat slightly apart. The fighting stopped as suddenly as it had started. Younghwa had Tariq pinned against the wall, one massive hand around his throat. Yunho Park had produced a gun from somewhere, and had it pressed against Thalani's temple. But both men looked to Jinwoo, waiting for orders. Jinwoo picked up the bottle Amina had indicated. He held it up to the light, examining it carefully. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. It was a cold smile, empty of humor, but a smile nonetheless. You know, he said conversationally, as if they were discussing the weather, I've survived 17 assassination attempts. Some were crude bullets, knives, car bombs. Some were sophisticated, political manipulation, legal traps, corporate sabotage. But poison in a toast. He shook his head slightly. That's almost elegant. He set the bottle down with exaggerated care, then turned his full attention to Tariq and Thalani. These two came highly recommended. Excellent track records. Loyal service to their previous employers. I paid them very well to join my organization. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than a shout. I wonder who paid them better? Stop. Just stop for a second and think about what just happened. Amina made her choice. She spoke up. She saved a man's life, yes, but she also just threw herself into the middle of a mafia power struggle. The men who tried to kill Jinwoo Cho will want her dead. Their bosses will want her dead. And Jinwoo himself? He owes her a debt, but in his world debts are dangerous things. Amina's life will never be the same. She can't go back to being invisible. She can't pretend this didn't happen. And neither can you. You're invested now. You need to know what happens to her, what Jinwoo does to those traitors, who sent them, and how Amina survives what's coming. But here's what you need to understand. If you don't subscribe right now, you might miss the next part. And trust me, what happens in the next few minutes will haunt Amina for the rest of her life. Don't be the person who looks away. Hit that subscribe button. Stay with Amina. Because she needs you to witness this. Tariq's cloudy eye seemed to fix on something only he could see as Yoonghwa's grip tightened around his throat. His good eye, however, was firmly locked on Amina, burning with hatred and something else, respect, maybe, or recognition of a fellow survivor. Who sent you? Jinwoo's question was deceptively soft. Neither man answered. Jinwoo sighed, as if disappointed by an underperforming student. Yunho, clear the restaurant. I want everyone out except essential staff. Pay them for the inconvenience. He glanced at Amina. And secure room 4 for our waitress here. She's not going anywhere. Sir, Amina started, but Jinwoo cut her off with a raised hand. You saved my life. That means we need to talk. But first I need to handle this. He gestured at the two would-be assassins. And I don't think you want to see what happens next. He was right. Amina didn't. Yoonghwa was already dragging Tariq toward a door she hadn't noticed before, one that led deeper into the restaurant's back areas. Yunho followed with Thalani, whose earlier bravado had evaporated into trembling silence. Take her to room 4, Jinwoo instructed one of the other men. Someone Amina hadn't paid attention to before. Get her whatever she needs. Food, water. And someone tell Mr. Kim that if anyone, and I mean anyone, bothers her, I'll burn this place down. The man nodded and approached Amina with unexpected gentleness. Please, miss. This way. Amina's legs felt like rubber as she followed him out of room 3 and into the adjacent private room. This one was smaller, more intimate, decorated with intricate wooden carvings that depicted both African and Korean folklore. Anansi the spider intertwined with the Korean tiger guardian. The man, young, maybe mid-20s, with nervous energy that suggested he was newer to this life, gestured to the cushioned seating. Please sit. I'll bring you something to drink. Not soju, he added with a weak attempt at humor. Amina sat, her body finally giving in to the shock. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. What had she done? What had she just done? Through the walls she could hear muffled sounds from room 3. Raised voices. A thump. A cry that was quickly silenced. She closed her eyes and pressed her hands over her ears, trying to block it out, but the sound seemed to penetrate her skull. They're torturing them, she realized. They're finding out who sent them. And I made that happen. No, she hadn't made that happen. Tariq and Thalani had chosen to betray Jinwoo. They'd chosen to try to kill him. All she'd done was prevent murder. That was the right thing. That was. Another cry, louder this time. Amina's stomach churned. She lurched toward the corner of the room, looking for a bathroom, a trash can, anything, but before she could be sick, the young man returned with a tray. He set down a cup of tea, something herbal that smelled of ginger and chamomile, and a small plate of kimchi fried rice. "Boss says you should eat," he said. "You look pale." Amina couldn't imagine eating, but she took the tea with trembling hands and sipped it. The warmth helped, grounding her back in her body. "What's going to happen to me?" she asked quietly. The young man's face was sympathetic. "I don't know. But..." He hesitated, then continued. "Boss doesn't usually let people go once they're involved. But he also doesn't usually owe people his life. You're in a unique position." "Lucky me," Amina muttered. "More than you know. Most people who find out about our business end up in the Han River. You're drinking tea in a private room. That means something." The sounds from next door had stopped. The silence was somehow worse than the noise had been. Amina's imagination filled in the gaps: bloodied bodies, cold execution, the casual disposal of human life. "This is the world you just entered," she told herself. "This is what you chose when you spoke up." The door opened and Yunho Park stepped in. His glasses were slightly askew, and there was a small splash of red on his otherwise immaculate sleeve. He adjusted his glasses with practiced precision, then regarded Amina with the analytical gaze of a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "Miss Jang," he said, and Amina's blood froze. He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. These people probably knew everything about her already. "The boss will see you now." Amina stood on unsteady legs. The young man took the teacup from her hands and gave her an encouraging nod, but his eyes betrayed his concern. She followed Yunho back down the hallway. Room 3 had been transformed. The table had been cleared, the floor cleaned. No sign of Tariq or Thalani remained. It was as if the last hour had never happened, wiped away with professional efficiency. Jinwoo Cho stood by the window, looking out at Itaewon's neon-lit streets. His suit jacket was draped over a chair, his white shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with scars, evidence of a violent past. He didn't turn around when she entered. "Close the door," he said. Amina did, her hand shaking on the handle. "Sit." She sat at the table, in the same spot where a poisoned bottle had been sitting less than an hour ago. The bottle was gone now, presumably in evidence or destroyed. Jinwoo finally turned to face her. Up close, without the threat of immediate violence, she could see him more clearly. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe, with a face that would have been handsome if not for the hardness around his eyes and the thin scar running from his left temple to his jaw. His eyes, she noticed, were not black as she'd first thought, but a very dark brown that caught the light when he moved. "Amina Jang," he said, testing her name. "Nigerian. 26 years old. Arrived in Seoul 3 years ago on a student visa to study at Yonsei University. Dropped out after 1 semester when your father got sick. Been working illegally for the past 2 years. Sends approximately 80% of your earnings back home. Lives in a shared apartment in Sindangdong with 3 other undocumented workers. Buys the same brand of instant noodles every week, and eats 1 meal a day to save money." Each word felt like a slap. He knew everything. Everything. "Should I continue?" Jinwoo asked. "I could tell you about the brother who doesn't know you're here. About the mother who died when you were 8. About the night 2 months ago when you almost got caught by immigration but ran through 6 blocks of Dongdaemun to escape." Amina's throat tightened. That night had been the worst of her life, sprinting through crowds with her heart hammering, certain every person in uniform was coming for her. "How?" "I know everything about everyone in my territory," Jinwoo said simply. "It's how I stay alive. Speaking of which..." He pulled out a chair and sat across from her, his movements languid and controlled. "You saved my life tonight." "Why?" The question hung in the air. Amina struggled to find an answer that made sense. I don't know. I just couldn't let it happen." "Couldn't let it happen," Jinwoo repeated, his tone neutral. "Even though warning me put you at tremendous risk? Even though these men could have killed you on the spot? Even though now their employers know there's a witness?" "I didn't think." "No, you didn't." His voice was sharp now. "You acted on instinct, on some moral compass that has no place in the real world. Do you know what that makes you?" Amina shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "Dangerous," Jinwoo said. "To yourself and now to me. 'Cause now I owe you. And in my world, debts are complicated." Look at Amina. Look at her sitting there, across from one of the most dangerous men in Seoul, realizing that saving his life might have been the worst decision she ever made. She thought she was doing the right thing. She thought she was being brave. But bravery and stupidity often look the same in the moment, don't they? And now she's learning that doing the right thing doesn't always lead to a good outcome. Sometimes it leads to a debt you can never repay. Sometimes it leads to becoming entangled with people you should have run from. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Would you have done differently? If you'd heard what she heard, would you have stayed silent? It's easy to judge from a distance, but you're not at a distance anymore. You're here in this room watching this unfold. And if you want to see whether Amina survives what she started, whether she finds a way out or gets pulled deeper in, you need to commit. Subscribe. Because what Jinwoo tells her next will change everything. And I need you to be there for it. Jinwoo stood and walked to a cabinet built into the wall. He opened it to reveal an array of expensive liquor bottles, single malts, rare cognacs, aged soju that cost more per bottle than Amina made in a month. He selected a bottle of Japanese whiskey and 2 glasses. Drink with me, he said, pouring 2 fingers into each glass. I don't. It wasn't a request. Amina took the glass with shaking hands. The whiskey glowed amber in the soft light, and when she raised it to her lips, the smell was overwhelming. Oak, smoke, and something sweet she couldn't identify. Jinwoo raised his own glass. To honesty, he said. A rare commodity in my world. They drank. The whiskey burned down Amina's throat, warming her chest but doing nothing to calm her racing heart. Jinwoo set his glass down with a soft click. Here's your problem, Amina. You saved my life, which means I'm in your debt. But you also witnessed an attempted assassination, which makes you a liability. You know I have enemies. You know I can be betrayed from within my organization. You know too much. I won't tell anyone, Amina said quickly. I swear I'll never. Stop. Jinwoo's voice was sharp. Don't insult me with promises you can't keep. If the wrong people find you, they'll make you talk. Torture, threats to your family, money. Everyone breaks eventually. The only question is what breaks them. Amina's vision blurred with tears. Then what do you want from me? That's the question, isn't it? Jinwoo leaned back in his chair, studying her. I could kill you. Clean. Simple. Eliminate the liability. But that seems ungrateful given that you saved my life. I could pay you off, send you back to Nigeria with enough money to take care of your father. But money doesn't buy loyalty, and it doesn't buy silence. The people who sent those two. He gestured vaguely toward where Tariq and Thalani had been. They have more money than I do. They'd find you, buy you, use you. So what then? Amina's voice was barely a whisper. So I bring you in. Jinwoo's eyes were intense, boring into hers. You work for me. Under my protection. Where I can see you, control you, trust you. Work for you, Amina repeated slowly. Doing what? Whatever I need. You speak English, Korean, and several African languages, yes? You blend into crowds. People underestimate you. Those are valuable skills in my line of work. I'm not a criminal. The words came out stronger than Amina felt. No? You're an illegal immigrant working under a false name at a restaurant that launders money for organized crime. You've been committing crimes since the day your visa expired. The only difference is now you'd be committing them consciously. For better pay and with actual protection. The logic was brutal and airtight. Amina wanted to argue, wanted to find a hole in his reasoning, but she couldn't. Everything he said was true. And if I refuse? Jinwoo's expression didn't change. Then you walk out of here tonight, go back to your shared apartment, and pray that whoever sent those assassins doesn't find you first. Or that immigration doesn't pick you up. Or that I don't change my mind about letting you go. He paused. How long do you think you'd last? Not long. Amina knew it and Jinwoo knew she knew it. I need time to think, she said. You have until I finish this drink. Jinwoo poured himself another glass. After that, I need an answer. Amina watched the amber liquid swirl in his glass, her mind racing. What choice did she really have? She'd stepped into the tiger's den, and now the tiger was offering her a collar instead of his teeth. But a collar was still a collar. She'd be owned, controlled, used for things she didn't want to think about. But she'd be alive. And more than that, she'd be protected. No more running from immigration. No more fear of deportation. And the money, enough to actually help her father, not just keep him treading water. What exactly would you want me to do? She asked quietly. For now? Keep working here. Watch. Listen. Report back to me. You blend in ways my usual people can't. No one suspects the waitress. Jinwoo took a sip of his whiskey. Later we'll see. Maybe translation work. Maybe you accompany me to meetings as cover. Maybe something else. I adapt to opportunities as they arise. And if I want out? Eventually. Jinwoo's laugh was harsh and empty. No one gets out, Amina. That's the first thing you need to understand. Once you're in for life. The only exit is death, yours or mine. Those are the rules. The weight of it settled over Amina like a shroud. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a life sentence. She thought of her father, of the promise she'd made to herself to survive at any cost. But was this surviving, or was it a different kind of death? A slow erosion of the person she'd been, replaced by someone who could live with blood on their hands and secrets in their heart? Time's up, Jinwoo said, draining his glass. What's it going to be? Amina looked into his eyes and saw no mercy there, no reprieve. Only cold calculation and the patience of a predator, who knew his prey had nowhere left to run. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. I'll work for you. Something flickered in Jinwoo's expression, satisfaction maybe, or relief. Smart choice. Yunho will get your details, set up a proper phone line, arrange for your visa to be fixed. You'll stay in your current apartment for now, keep your regular schedule. Nothing changes on the surface. But you're mine now. Remember that. Yours, Amina thought, the word echoing in her head like a death knell. I'm his now. Jinwoo stood, extending his hand. Amina stared at it for a moment. This was it, the final seal on her fate. Then took it. His grip was firm and warm. His skin marked with calluses that spoke of violence. Welcome to the family, Amina Jang. 3 days passed like a fever dream. True to Jinwoo's word, Yunho Park contacted her the morning after that fateful night. He arrived at her apartment, a small cramped space she shared with 2 Filipino women and a Vietnamese man, all of whom scattered like roaches when they saw Yunho's expensive suit and colder eyes. Your visa, he said, handing her an envelope. Legitimate now. Student visa reinstated with a work permit. Don't ask how. Just know that you're legal again. Amina opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The documents looked perfect, complete with official stamps and signatures. She was legal. After 2 years of living in shadows, of checking over her shoulder, of taking side streets to avoid police, she was finally legal. There's more, Yunho said, pulling out a smartphone, new, expensive, nothing like the cracked second-hand model she'd been using. This is your work phone. Only 3 numbers programmed in. Mine, Younghwa's, and the boss. You answer when any of us call. Day or night. Understood. Understood. Good. Now your first assignment. Yunho pulled out a small notebook and flipped it open. There's a regular who comes to the Cory house every Thursday night. Korean man, late 50s, always orders the same table, always comes alone. Name is Park Sung-min. He's a city council member. You want me to... What? Spy on him. Watch him. Listen. Report what he talks about on his phone calls, who he meets if anyone joins him, what time he arrives and leaves. That's all. Simple observation. Sounded simple. Too simple. Why? Yunho's expression was flat. That's not your concern. Your concern is doing what you're told and staying alive. Questions lead to complications. Complications lead to... He made a cutting gesture across his throat. After he left, Amina sat on her thin mattress, staring at the expensive phone in her hand. Her roommates crept back in, eyeing her with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Who was that? Maria, one of the Filipino women, asked quietly. No one, Amina said. Just visa stuff. But Maria's eyes were knowing. She'd been in Seoul longer than Amina, had seen things, understood the way power moved through the city's underworld. You be careful, she said softly. Men in suits like that, they don't fix visas out of kindness. I know. That Thursday, Amina worked her shift with a new awareness. Every customer became a potential target, Every conversation a piece of intelligence. When Park Sung-min arrived at 7:47 p.m., she noted the time carefully. She made sure to be the one who served his table. He was exactly as Yunho had described. Late 50s, graying hair, expensive but understated suit. He ordered the fusion steak with kimchi chimichurri and a bottle of beer. And then he made a phone call. Amina busied herself at a nearby table, close enough to overhear but not so close as to be obvious. "No, I told you the rezoning vote is next month," Park Sung-min said in Korean. His voice low but not quite a whisper. "Yes, I can guarantee it passes. The price we discussed is acceptable, but I need half up front. Of course it's secure. I have 4 other council members locked in. The Itaewon district, blocks 7 through 12. Amina's blood ran cold. She knew those blocks. Her apartment was in block 9. This man was selling out an entire neighborhood. She finished at the table and hurried to the bathroom, pulling out her new phone with shaking hands. She texted Yunho exactly what she'd heard, word for word. His response came 30 seconds later. "Good. Continue." When her shift ended at midnight, Younghwa was waiting outside. The massive bodyguard stood beside a black Mercedes, his expression unreadable. "Get in," he said. "Where are we going?" "Boss wants to see you." The drive through Seoul's nighttime streets was silent. Amina watched the city blur past, neon signs advertising noribangs and restaurants, late-night crowds spilling out of clubs, delivery drivers weaving between cars on their scooters. Normal life. The life she used to live, before she'd heard something she shouldn't have. They didn't go to the Cory house. Instead, Younghwa drove to a high-rise in Gangnam, the kind of building where penthouses sold for millions of dollars. He led her through a marble lobby where the security guard nodded without asking questions, up an elevator that required a key card, to the top floor. The penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city. Modern furniture in blacks and grays. Abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than Amina's entire apartment building. And there, standing by the window with a glass of wine, was Jinwoo Cho. He'd changed from his usual suit into dark slacks and a black silk shirt, rolled up at the sleeves. Without the armor of formal wear, he looked younger, almost approachable. "Almost. Good work tonight," he said without turning around. "Park Sung-min has been a thorn in my side for months. Now I know exactly what he's planning." "What will you do with the information?" Amina asked before she could stop herself. Jinwoo turned, raising an eyebrow. "I'll use it. That's what information is for." "But those blocks he mentioned, there are families there. People living their lives. If you expose him or blackmail him or whatever you're planning." "You think I'm the villain in this?" Jinwoo's voice was sharp. "Park Sung-min is selling out those blocks to a development company owned by the Sangpa gang. They'll bulldoze everything, displace hundreds of families, and build luxury condos. I'm going to stop him." Amina blinked. "You're going to stop him? Did you think I was just a thug?" Jinwoo set down his wine glass and approached her. "I control Itaewon, Amina. Every business, every street, every person, they're under my protection. The Sangpa gang thinks they can move into my territory by buying corrupt politicians. They're wrong." "So you're what? A good guy?" Jinwoo's laugh was bitter. "No. I'm absolutely not a good guy. I'm a criminal. I've killed people. I've hurt people. I've done things that would make you sick. But this is my territory, and I protect what's mine. Those families you're worried about? They pay me protection money, which means I actually protect them." The logic was twisted, but Amina could see the thread of truth in it. In the absence of law, someone had to maintain order. And Jinwoo had decided that someone was him. "Why am I here?" she asked. "You could have just sent a text saying good job." "Because I want you to understand what you're part of now." Jinwoo gestured to the windows, to the sprawling city below. "Every light down there represents someone trying to survive. Some do it legally. Some don't. Some, like Park Sung-min, do it by selling out others. I'm not asking you to like what I do. I'm asking you to understand it. And if I don't, then you'll be miserable in your new life. And miserable people make mistakes." He stepped closer, his eyes intense. "I need you sharp, Amina. I need you to see clearly, to understand the game we're playing. Because the people I'm up against, they'll destroy you without a second thought. The only way you survive is by being useful to me. Stop and think about what Amina's learning right now. The world isn't black and white. It's not heroes and villains. It's people making impossible choices in impossible situations. Jinwoo is a criminal, yes. He's done terrible things. But he's also protecting his territory from worse criminals. And Amina? She's caught in the middle, trying to figure out if she's helping or hurting, saving or damning herself. You want simple answers. You want to know if she's doing the right thing. But life doesn't work that way. Neither does this story. And you're too deep in now to pretend you don't care what happens next. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to subscribe. You're going to commit to seeing this through with Amina, because she can't do it alone. She needs you to witness this, to be part of her journey. Even if it's messy and complicated and doesn't have easy answers. Subscribe. Now. Because what happens next is going to test everything Amina thought she knew about right and wrong. 2 weeks into her new life, Amina barely recognized herself. She still worked at the Corey house, still smiled at customers, still carried trays of fusion cuisine. But now her eyes were always watching. Her ears always listening. She'd become a spy in plain sight. And the worst part was how good she was at it. She reported on the Japanese businessmen who met every Tuesday to discuss shipping routes. Drugs, Yunho told her later, coming in from Busan. She noted when the Russian diplomat's wife met with a young Korean man who definitely wasn't her husband, leverage, Jinwoo called it, useful for future negotiations. She memorized faces, names, snippets of conversation. And slowly, terrifyingly, it stopped feeling wrong. That was what scared her most. Not the danger, not the moral compromise, but how quickly she adapted. How easily she slipped into this new skin. She caught herself analyzing people instinctively now, categorizing them as potential threats or assets. Her father's daughter was disappearing, replaced by someone harder, colder. She sent money home more than ever before. Her father's treatments improved. He called her, his voice stronger, telling her he might actually beat the tuberculosis. "You've saved my life," he said. And Amina had to bite her lip to keep from crying because she knew exactly whose blood money was paying for his medicine. On a rainy Tuesday night, Jinwoo summoned her to the penthouse again. This time Yunho was there too, along with Yoonghwa and 2 other men Amina didn't recognize. They stood around a table covered with photographs and documents. "We have a problem," Jinwoo said without preamble. "The people who sent Tariq and Thalani, we've identified them. Chinese organization called the Red Lotus. They're making a serious push into Seoul, using the Sangpa gang as their local muscle." He tapped one of the photographs. It showed a middle-aged Chinese man with sharp features and cold eyes. "This is Zhang Wei, Red Lotus second-in-command. He's in Seoul now, personally overseeing the expansion. Tomorrow night, he's meeting with Sangpa leadership at a restaurant in Gangnam." "You want me to spy on them?" Amina asked. "No. You can't get into that restaurant. It's members only, very exclusive. But Zhang Wei's translator is a Korean woman named Kim Min-seo. She's meeting him at his hotel first." Jinwoo slid another photograph across the table. "You're going to replace her." Amina's blood froze. "What?" "Min-seo is roughly your height, your build. With the right clothes, makeup, you could pass for her in low light. She's already been detained. You'll go to Zhang Wei's hotel room, pose as her, accompany him to the restaurant, and translate the meeting. We'll have ears on you the whole time." "Are you insane? What if they figure out I'm not her?" "What if?" "Then you'll probably die," Jinwoo said flatly. "But if you don't do this, if we don't find out what Red Lotus is planning, dozens of people will die. Including, eventually, you. They know someone tipped me off about the poison. They're hunting for the leak. It's only a matter of time before they narrow it down to the Corey house. And then to you." Amina's legs felt weak. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Jinwoo's voice softened slightly. "I wouldn't ask if there was. But you speak Mandarin, I checked your university records. You're quick, adaptable. And they won't expect it. That's our only advantage. I studied Mandarin for 1 semester. I'm not fluent. You don't need to be fluent. Zhang Wei speaks Korean well enough for basic communication. You're there to handle technical terms, business language. Just follow Min-seo's translation style." Yunho opened a folder and pulled out several pages. "We have transcripts of her previous work. Study them. You have 16 hours. Amina looked around the room at these men who were calmly discussing sending her into lethal danger. Yoonghwa's face was impassive. Yunho's was calculating. The other two men looked bored. Only Jinwoo met her eyes, and in his gaze she saw something unexpected, concern. Real genuine concern. I'll be there, he said quietly. Not in the restaurant but nearby. If anything goes wrong, Yoonghwa will extract you. You won't be alone. It wasn't much comfort, but it was something. And if I say no? Amina asked, already knowing the answer. Then you run. Tonight. Leave Seoul, leave Korea. Go somewhere far away and pray the Red Lotus never finds you. Jinwoo paused. But we both know you won't do that. Your father needs you. Your future needs you. And whether you want to admit it or not, you're already committed. You saved my life. That made you part of this war. He was right. She'd been part of this war since the moment she whispered, "Don't talk." There was no neutral ground, no safe distance. She was in the river, and the only choice was whether to swim or drown. Fine, Amina said, her voice hollow. I'll do it. The next 16 hours were a blur. Yunho drilled her relentlessly on Mandarin business vocabulary. A woman came to style her hair and makeup to match Minasio's look. They provided her with an expensive dress, shoes, jewelry, everything Kim Minacio would have worn. By the time Amina looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. You look perfect, the stylist said approvingly. But Amina saw a stranger staring back. Someone who could lie convincingly. Someone who could walk into danger wearing high heels and a smile. Someone who was becoming exactly the kind of person she'd never wanted to be. At 6:30 p.m., a car dropped her off at the Grand Hyatt Seoul. The lobby was magnificent. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, staff in crisp uniforms attending to wealthy guests. Amina walked through it all with false confidence, her heart hammering, the tiny earpiece hidden in her ear barely noticeable. Room 2847. Yunho's voice crackled softly. You're doing fine. Remember your Minacio. You've done this 100 times. Confidence. The elevator ride to the 28th floor felt eternal. Amina watched the numbers climb, each one bringing her closer to a point of no return. She'd crossed many lines already, but this was different. This was active deception, walking into the enemy's lair wearing a mask. What would Dad think? The thought came unbidden. What would he say if he knew his daughter had become this? But she knew the answer. He'd say whatever it takes to survive. He'd taught her that. Survival trumped morality when you had nothing else. The hallway was empty, plushly carpeted, silent except for the hum of air conditioning. Room 2847 was at the end. Amina raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. Go, Yunho's voice urged in her ear. It's time. She knocked. The door opened immediately. Zhang Wei stood there, looking exactly like his photograph but somehow more dangerous in person. His eyes swept over her, assessing, and for a terrible moment Amina was certain he knew. Certain he'd see through the disguise, the makeup, the lie. But then he smiled, a cold professional smile, and said in Korean, Minasia, right on time. Come in. Amina stepped into the room, and the door closed behind her with a soft final click. Amina just walked into a trap. Maybe not literally, maybe Zhang Wei really thinks she's Minacio. Or maybe he knows. Maybe this whole thing is a setup, and Jinwoo has just sent her to her death. You don't know yet. I don't even know yet. But here's what I do know, Amina is terrified. She's in a hotel room with a man who kills people for a living, wearing a dead woman's clothes, speaking a language she barely knows, pretending to be someone she's not. And the worst part? She can't leave. She can't run. The only way out is through. Just like you. You've come this far. You've watched Amina transform from a scared waitress into someone capable of this kind of deception. You've seen her compromise her morals, rationalize her choices, become someone her former self wouldn't recognize. And you're going to keep watching, aren't you? Because you need to know if she survives. If she makes it out. If there's any redemption waiting at the end of this dark tunnel. Subscribe. Right now. Because I promise you what happens in that hotel room, and then at the restaurant will haunt you. But you need to see it. Amina needs you to see it. Don't look away now. Zhang Wei's hotel room was a suite. Living area. Bedroom visible through an open door. floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's nightscape. 2 other men were present. A younger Chinese man who looked like muscle, and a Korean man in an expensive suit who Amina recognized from Jinwoo's briefing as Lee Sang-wook, Sangpa Gang's third-in-command. Min SEO, you know Lee, Zhang Wei said, gesturing casually. And this is Chun. He's new to Seoul. Doesn't speak Korean yet. Amina nodded, not trusting her voice. She set down the small purse they'd given her, expensive leather, containing nothing but tissues and a phone that was actually a recording device. We're leaving in 10 minutes, Zhang Wei continued. I wanted to brief you on tonight's discussion. There are some sensitive terms that need precise translation. No metaphors, no softening. Exact meanings. Of course, Amina said, channeling every ounce of Kim Min-seo's professional demeanor that she'd studied in those transcripts. That's my specialty. Zhang Wei smiled, but his eyes remained cold. That's why I pay you so well. Now, tonight we're finalizing the territory split. The Sangpa Gang gets Yangdongpo, Jumcheon, and Gwanak districts. We get Gangnam, Seocho, and... He paused significantly. Itaewon. Amina's blood turned to ice, but she kept her face neutral. Through the earpiece, she heard Yunho's sharp intake of breath. Itaewon is the key, Lee Sang-wook interjected in Korean. Once we control Itaewon, Jinwoo-cho is finished. His whole operation depends on that district. Which is why we're moving quickly, Zhang Wei said. Cho has been weakened by recent betrayals. His inner circle is compromised. He trusts the wrong people. In 1 week, we'll have enough leverage to either force him out or eliminate him entirely. Amina's hands trembled slightly. She clasped them together, pretending to check her phone to hide the reaction. Are we certain about the timeline? Lee asked. Cho isn't stupid. He has sources everywhere. He's distracted, Zhang Wei said dismissively. The attempt on his life has him focused on internal threats. He's looking inward when he should be watching his borders. Classic mistake. The younger guard, Chun, said something in rapid Mandarin. Amina caught fragments, something about weapons timing coordination. Chun wants to know about the weapons shipment. Amina translated carefully. Her Mandarin accent not perfect but passable. Tell him it arrives Friday, Zhang Wei replied in Korean. Port of Incheon. Local police are paid off. The route is clean. Amina translated, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Every word was being recorded, transmitted back to Jinwoo's team. This was exactly the intelligence they needed. But something felt wrong. Zhang Wei was too relaxed, too open with information. Either he completely trusted Min SEO or... We should go, Lee said, checking his watch. The restaurant expects us at 8. They took 2 cars to the restaurant, a place called Moonlight Palace in the heart of Gangnam. It was the kind of establishment that didn't advertise, where membership cost more than most people's yearly salary. The exterior was unmarked, just a heavy wooden door with a small bronze plaque. Inside, it was beautiful in an understated way. Low lighting, private rooms separated by rice paper screens. The soft sound of a gyeojeum playing traditional Korean music. They were led to a private room in the back, the most secluded in the restaurant. 5 more men were already there, Sangpa leadership, all of them. Amina recognized 2 from Jinwoo's briefings. They all stood when Zhang Wei entered, showing respect that bordered on deference. The meeting began. For 2 hours, Amina translated negotiations about territory, shipment routes, profit splits, and operational security. Her Mandarin was stretched to its limits, but she managed, pausing occasionally to clarify terms with Zhang Wei. No one questioned her presence. No one looked at her suspiciously. And that's when she realized the trap. It was too easy. These were paranoid, violent men discussing plans worth millions of dollars. And they were doing it in front of a translator they saw once a month? They weren't even being careful with their words, weren't using code phrases or euphemisms. They wanted this conversation recorded. They wanted Jinwoo to hear it. Excuse me, Amina said during a lull in conversation. Restroom. Zhang Wei nodded absently, already turning back to Lee Sang-wook. Amina walked out of the private room, her heels clicking on polished wood floors. The restaurant's main area was quiet. Only a few other rooms occupied. She found the bathroom and locked herself in a stall, pulling out the phone. Yunho, she whispered urgently. It's a trap. They want us to hear this. They're feeding us false information. Static crackled in her earpiece. Then Yunho's voice tense. How do you know? They're too open. Too careless. Zhang Wei doesn't strike me as careless. He's performing. A pause. Then, boss agrees. We're pulling you out. Go to the restaurant's back exit. Yoa will be there in 3 minutes. But if I leave now, they'll know. They already know. Jinwa's voice cut in, sharp and urgent. They knew from the moment you walked into that hotel room. Minasio's body was found an hour ago. Someone tipped them off about the switch. Get out. Now. Amina's vision swam. They knew. They'd known all along. Every word she translated, every piece of intelligence, it was all poison. Carefully crafted disinformation designed to make Jinwoo act on false assumptions. And if they knew about Minasio's body, they knew someone had detained her. They knew Jinwoo had access to their plans. Which meant they knew there was a spy. Which meant they knew about her. Amina flushed the toilet for appearance's sake, washed her hands with shaking fingers, and stepped out of the bathroom. The hallway back to the private room stretched before her. To her right, a server pushed through a door, the kitchen entrance. Beyond that must be the back exit. She started walking toward the private room, then at the last second veered right, pushing through the kitchen door. The kitchen was chaos. Chefs shouting orders, flames leaping from woks, servers rushing between stations. No one paid attention to one more well-dressed woman hurrying through. Amina spotted the back exit, a heavy metal door with an emergency bar. She was 10 feet away when Chan stepped out from behind a storage shelf. The younger guard from Zhang Wei's room. His hand was already moving toward his jacket, toward what was undoubtedly a gun. Amina didn't think. She grabbed a pot of boiling soup from a nearby stove and threw it. Chan screamed as the scalding liquid hit his face and chest. Amina ran, slamming through the emergency exit door. The alarm blared immediately. The back alley was narrow, dark, rank with garbage. And there at the end, idling with its lights off, was a black Mercedes. Younghwa leaned out the driver's window. Run! Amina ran, her high heels slipping on wet pavement. Behind her, the kitchen door burst open. Shouts in Chinese and Korean. The distinctive click of a gun being cocked. She was 20 feet from the car. 15. 10. A gunshot cracked through the alley. The bullet sparked off the pavement inches from her feet. Younghwa's arm extended from the window, his own gun firing 3 rapid shots over Amina's head. Covering fire. She reached the car and dove into the passenger seat. Younghwa was already accelerating before she'd even closed the door. More gunshots. The back window spiderwebbed but held. Younghwa took a corner at 60 miles per hour, tires screaming, throwing Amina against the door. Are you hit? He barked. No. No, I'm okay. How did they know? How did they? Later. Right now we need to get you somewhere safe. They drove in silence for 10 minutes, Younghwa taking a maze of back streets and alleys, checking mirrors constantly. Finally, he pulled into an underground parking garage and killed the engine. We wait here, he said. Boss is handling the situation. Handling what situation? They set us up. They fed us fake intelligence. If Jinwoo acts on anything we heard tonight, he won't. He's not stupid. Younghwa's massive hands gripped the steering wheel. But this is bad. Very bad. They penetrated our operation. Someone told them about the Minacio switch. You think we have another traitor? I think we have several. Younghwa looked at her, his expression grave. And until we figure out who, no one is safe. Especially not you. Amina almost died tonight. She came within inches, literally inches, of a bullet ending her life in a filthy alley behind a restaurant. And for what? For intelligence that turned out to be fake. For a mission that was compromised from the start. She risked everything and it nearly cost her everything. But here's what's eating at her right now, and what should be eating at you. Someone betrayed her. Someone in Jinwa's organization knew about the Minacio plan and sold that information to Zhang Wei. Which means Amina can't trust anyone. She's surrounded by enemies, and she doesn't even know who they are. And you? You're watching this spiral deeper and deeper into darkness. You're watching Amina lose herself piece by piece, compromise by compromise, near-death experience by near-death experience. You could stop watching. You could click away, pretend you never started this story. But you won't. Because you're invested. Because you need to know who betrayed her. Because you need to know if she survives. So stop pretending you're just a passive observer. Subscribe. Commit. Because Amina needs you to see this through to the end, whatever that end might be. And trust me, it's going to get so much worse before it gets better. If it gets better at all. The safe house was an apartment in Mapogu, nondescript from the outside but heavily fortified within. Steel-reinforced door, bars on the windows, security cameras in every corner. Jinwoo was already there when Younghwa and Amina arrived, along with Yunho and 3 men Amina had never seen before. Jinwoo's face was a mask of controlled fury. He discarded his jacket, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his tie loosened. For the first time since Amina had met him, he looked genuinely rattled. Sit, he commanded, and Amina sat. How many people knew about the Minasio operation? Jinwoo asked Yunho. 7. Yumi, Younghwa, Amina, and 3 logistics team members who handled the detention. Names. Yunho consulted a tablet. Kim Tae-sung, Choi Min-jun, and Park Ji-won. Bring them in. Now. And I want a full audit of their communications, financials, everything. Jinwoo turned to one of the unknown men. You. Check all electronic systems. I want to know if we've been hacked, bugged, or compromised digitally. The man nodded and pulled out a laptop, immediately getting to work. Jinwoo finally looked at Amina. You did well tonight. Quick thinking with the soup and quicker thinking realizing it was a trap. Most people wouldn't have caught that. Most people wouldn't have been stupid enough to walk into a hotel room pretending to be someone else, Amina said bitterly. No. Most people wouldn't have been brave enough. Jinwoo pulled up a chair and sat across from her. I'm sorry. I put you in danger based on faulty assumptions. That's on me. The apology surprised her. Men like Jinwoo didn't apologize. Didn't admit fault. What happens now? She asked. Now we find the traitor. And we send a message that betrayal has consequences. His voice was cold, final. But first you need to understand something. Tonight changed everything. Red Lotus knows we're actively working against them. They know we have intelligence capabilities. They'll be coming for us hard and fast. So what's your plan? War, Jinwoo said simply. All-out war. No more games, no more subtlety. They want Itaewon? They'll have to take it from my corpse. Over the next 3 hours, Amina watched Jinwoo orchestrate a response with terrifying efficiency. He made calls to allies, other crime bosses, corrupt officials, business owners who owed him favors. He moved assets, repositioned his people, activated contingency plans that had apparently been years in the making. And when Kim Tae-sung, Choi Min-jun, and Park Ji-won were brought in, the 3 logistics team members, Jinwoo questioned them with ruthless precision. Kim Tae-sung broke first. 30 minutes of interrogation, and he confessed. Red Lotus had approached him 2 months ago. Offered him money, safety for his family, a way out of the organization. All he had to do was pass along occasional information. Small things at first. Then bigger things. Then details about the Minasio operation. I didn't know they'd try to kill her. Kim Tae-sung sobbed on his knees, hands bound behind his back. I swear I thought they just wanted intelligence. I didn't know. You didn't know, Jinwoo repeated coldly. You didn't think. You just took their money and sold out your brothers. He nodded to Younghwa. Take him to the river. No. Please. I have kids, I have. But Younghwa was already dragging him toward the door, the man's pleas fading as they disappeared down the hallway. Amina's stomach churned. She just watched a man be sentenced to death. Executed for betrayal. And while she intellectually understood why, in Jinwoo's world betrayal meant death. Seeing it happen was different than knowing it happened. The other 2 men had also been paid by Red Lotus, but their information had been less sensitive. Jinwoo stripped them of rank, confiscated their assets but let them live. You're out, he told them. Leave Seoul. If I ever see your faces again, you'll join Kim. After they were gone, Jinwoo returned to the main room, running his hands through his hair. He looked exhausted, the fury burning down to weary determination. This is the life, he said, seemingly to no one in particular. You build something. You trust people. And they betray you. Every time. Without fail. Not everyone betrays, Yunho said quietly. No. Jinhwa's laugh was bitter. Name one person in this organization who hasn't disappointed me. Yoonghwa. He's never wavered. Yoonghwa is loyal because I saved his sister's life. That's not loyalty. That's debt. Jinhwa's eyes found Amina's. You're loyal because you have no choice. Because I own you same as I own everyone. That's not true, Amina said, surprising herself. I could have run tonight. When Yoonghwa picked me up, I could have asked him to drop me at the airport instead of bringing me here. I could have disappeared. Why didn't you? It was a good question. Why hadn't she? Fear of being hunted down? Concern for her father's continued treatment? Or something else? Because, Amina said slowly, working it out as she spoke, you're fighting Red Lotus. And they're the ones pushing the Sangpa gang to displace families from my neighborhood. The same families I grew up around. If you lose, they lose everything. If you win. She paused. If you win, maybe something good comes from all this. Jinwoo studied her for a long moment. You still think there's good in this world. That's remarkable, considering everything you've seen. I think there's necessary evil, Amina corrected. Which isn't the same as good, but it's not pure evil either. You're necessary evil. You maintain order in a world that doesn't.